You're watching the primetime newscast in the English language on Canal, the international. Thanks for joining us. My name is Gladys Ambodiba. Stay tuned for the headlines. A 6-year-old child has finally been freed from captivity few days after he was kidnapped by his own cousin in Bafoussam in the west region of Cameroon and demanded a ransom of 5 million francs CFA for his release. The kidnapper claimed he abducted the child to pressurize his uncle, give him money. Details in this newscast. Good news for patients suffering from liver problems. There is still a glimmer of hopes. A Cameroonian doctor who suffered liver problem last year has survived a liver implantation in a hospital in India. His donor, his sister, survived the surgery too. A hope to others who are in desperate situations. And the National Civil Aviation Security Committee are multiplying efforts to curb the reigning security challenges within the civil aviation sector. Meeting in Yaoundé today, the different stakeholders were challenged to contribute needed efforts and step up the services in the Cameroonian airport and strive towards meeting international standards. Those were our headlines. Stay tuned for developments. Thanks for joining us once again. The growing number of improvised sales points of illicit fuel remains a preoccupation in Cameroon's economic city of Douala as the vendors sell in broad daylight without fear. The vendors claim they are being protected and encouraged by men in uniforms who are tipped. The details in the following report.
As time goes by, illegal fuel is gradually transforming the urban decor in Cameroon's major cities. It is the keys of Cameroon's economic city, Douala, where vendors have improvised sale points along the streets. Some car and motorbike owners have completely fallen for the fuel, caring less of the impacts on their engines. That's what I consume regularly. It's less expensive. When night falls, they store the unsold inflammable products in warehouses or makeshift hiding places on the roadside, endangering their own lives and those of their entourage. Sometimes we store them in our houses. Vendors told me some of their colleagues have fallen in the dragnet of security officers, but later on resumed their activity with the discreet support of some state agents who are normally supposed to prohibit the illegal trade. Uniform officers come around, they collect 1,000 francs from us, the police and the gendarmerie. How is the fuel smuggled into the black market? Who are the main suppliers? We have people who supply on the spot, but the majority of the fuel comes from Limbe. I can't give you the name of my supplier. The effects on Cameroon's economy is huge, with several calls from the cartel of businessmen GICAM for government to address the problem and fast.
There was Morindi in that report. Then we moved to Fumbot in the west region of Cameroon, where a 6-year-old child that was kidnapped or who was kidnapped by his cousin was finally freed after the kidnapper was arrested by police in Fumbot, still in the west region of Cameroon. The young man, the kidnapper, says he kidnapped the child following denial by his uncle to give him the sum of money he needed for business. You have the details in the following report.
These are the two young men involved in the kidnap of the 6-year-old child in Bafoussam in the west region of Cameroon. The brain behind the act This 23-year-old boy is cousin to the little boy who admits his act. He says he kidnapped his cousin to oblige his uncle give him money to start up a business. I asked money from my uncle and he refused. To oblige him, I decided to kidnap his son and demanded a ransom of 5 million francs CFA. He told us he had just 1 million. His accomplice denied having knowledge of the act, saying he was contacted by his friend to assist him with the purchase of a bike. But unfortunately, he was arrested alongside his friend. I went to Douala to hustle. My friend called and informed me that I should meet him in Fumbot so that he can buy me a new bike. Once in the town, I realized he was in the same room with 2 other young men and a little boy. When I asked, he told me the little boy was his uncle's son. Little did I know he kidnapped the child. Before I realized myself, the police arrived and we were handcuffed. Police in Fumbot arrested the culprits after a tip-off. We were alerted by the population of the suspicious presence of 2 young men and a child in a room in the neighborhood. When we investigated, we discovered it was a kidnap case with a ransom demand of 5 million francs CFA. The police succeeded in arresting the kidnappers and the child was handed over to his parents. The forces of law and order have urged the population to continue to collaborate with forces of law and order to fight against the phenomenon.
We stay in Bafoussam to talk about an interdisciplinary training that brought together journalists, lawyers, and the police. The goal to make information on human rights violation more accessible to journalists to help them expose perpetrators of right violations. Regina Leketandak gives us the details.
Recent studies conducted by the group African Journalists in Developmental Action, JAD, has revealed human rights violations remain highly underreported. This partly blamed on difficult access to information by journalists.
The problem is that every time that the journalist is in searching of information about the violation of human rights, it is not easy to have, for example, there is a policeman or a gendarme or a lawyer.
For this reason, JAD has brought together journalists, lawyers, and law enforcement officers at a workshop in Bafoussam to discuss and find common ground.
I'm here for the program by JAD, which is intended to bring in place the multi-actors, to go to help them to go to work in protecting human rights in that circumstance. And that includes police, gendarme, the magistracy, you have the journalists, you have NGOs, and you have that list of people who are actually helping to form a synergy that can help, in be able to improve on the work of human rights on ground in that circumstance.
The overall goal is to make information readily available for journalists.
All those actors can exchange and develop the good practices that who should enable journalists to have information where they need.
Findings by JAD has also indicated a slight improvement in terms of access to information, but they insist that more needs to be done to expose human rights violation in Cameroon.
Experts have underscored the importance to enhance exchanges to promote growth in the African continent in order to effectively compete in the global markets. They were meeting in Douala on June 2nd, 2022. They lamented that apart from the coronavirus pandemic, the Russian-Ukrainian war has worsened the situation in African economy rich in opportunities. You have more of that on this in the following report with Sherifa Saleh.
To promote the growth in African financial markets and enhance the capacity of African exchanges to compete effectively on the global stage, African economists came from different parts of the continent on the 10th edition of the Capacity Building Seminar this June 2nd in the nation's economic capital.
Eliminating barriers, all kinds of barriers on integration, trade and finance, and by looking at the realities that we have on the continent and supporting our SMEs, but also harmonizing our regulations and rules so that whatever we do, we don't become like an island, country by country. So we have to really work together. That's a key message.
In addition to the coronavirus pandemic, the Russian-Ukraine war seems to have slowed down the economy, however, raising opportunities.
Because if you don't engage, then you do not understand the types of products you need to introduce into your market. It may be that you end up introducing products that are not necessary to the market, or products to some of the things we talked about, where your regulations and your requirements are too stringent. And because of that, the investors that you are trying to create the products for, as well as even the issuers that are meant to produce, to issue those products, cannot take advantage of it.
To accompany all the action toward the integration of capital markets on the continent. We want also our government to continue to work on how to privatize state-owned companies using the capital markets.
The Building African Financial Markets, BAFM, met on the theme optimization of regulation as a lever of the development of African financial markets, and their suggestions will be of great concern to both minor and major businesses.
The National Civil Aviation Security Committee are multiplying efforts to curb the reigning security challenges within the civil aviation sector. Meeting in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Today, the different stakeholders were challenged to contribute needed efforts needed to step up the services in Cameroonian airports in order to meet international standards. You have the details with Haisentia from Yaoundé.
The Cameroon civil aviation sector continued to witness a number of hitches as imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as safety limitations. With the recent Kotko plane crash at Bibé, there is need to multiply efforts to mitigate all forms of safety threats. Meeting for their first session in Yaoundé this May 3rd, the National Civil Aviation Security Committee are seeking to evaluate the strides made this far.
Nous sommes donc là aujourd'hui pour nous assurer d'une part de l'évaluation que
we are here today to evaluate and ensure that all the measures and recommendations taken in 2021 have been implemented. We equally need to ensure that security and safety at the level of the different airports progresses in an optimal manner.
évolue de manière optimale.
An occasion to urge all the stakeholders involved to play their role in maintaining safety within the domain, the only way to obtain sounding result.
Nous sommes donc certains, et nous voulons croire,
we are certain and we believe that if all the administrators concerned, as well as all the members and elements of civil aviation safety are engaged, everything will be put in place to enable total safety in Cameroonian airports.
Notre pays soit la meilleure qui soit.
The meeting this day was equally aimed at projecting measures to ameliorate the services of Cameroon civil aviation to meet international norms and standards.
Let's move to the world of horses, where Kejaheri Atembe will be telling us about a major stake that led to a winner of the PMEC. You have the details.
The 100 million francs CFA winner of the PMC African Million Lottery has been handed his mock check, accompanied by the usual frenzy that goes with such happiness. The award ceremony took place at the Auditorium La Rotonde PMC headquarters in Aqua Douala on June 2, 2022. PMC Managing Director Paul-Louis Tassou personally handed the giant mock check to the lucky winner.
Les plus grands gagnants Africa Million.
The biggest African Million winners are here in Cameroon, and that's a strong message, as the product African Million is turning to be essential in the gambling sector in Cameroon. And I'm inviting all the gamblers to take part from this Saturday with only 300 francs CFA to try and win the prize of 56 million francs.
Et tenter de gagner la prochaine cagnotte qui est de 56 millions de francs CFA.
The 100 million francs winner of the African Million Lottery staked just 3,600 francs at a sales point in Bonaberi Douala, hitting the jackpot.
I played 2 games for 1,800 francs times 2, 3,600 francs. He gave me the money. I cut the ticket and give to him. So he went. On Sunday he came. For the 5th day that we are playing together with him, for the 5th day, that's on Sunday, he came, he gave me the tickets, I took the tickets, I saw, I called somebody to give me the tirage, somebody gave me the tirage, I said, oh my Lord, I have appointed you like the President of the Republic.
It should be recalled that the first African Million Lottery winner won 80 million CFA francs in Garua last April, while Douala queues with a substantial amount of 100 million CFA francs. With just 300 francs, PMC puts smiles on many faces and brings joy to many families in Cameroon. The Pan-African Lotto African Million draws takes place on Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. With PMC, you can also win.
It is with that Victoria that we wrap up this edition of the Primetime Newscasts in the English language on Canal International. The French edition will be yours at 7:50 p.m. with Aimé, Cathy and Mokori. I will be yours again on Monday, same time, God's willing. Bye-bye and have a wonderful weekend.